afternoon. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today, we are talking about how we sabotage our best parenting. Dad, what does that mean? I'm thinking of this topic, a little bit more about, obviously from the kid's side because I'm not a parent, but I guess my question is, how do you know you're sabotaging your best parenting if you don't really know what it is?
Exactly. If you don't, there's things you know, and there's things you don't know. And then there's a whole world of the things you don't know that you don't know. And we're going to talk today about some of the things that you don't know that you don't know. And when
I
you,
wish we had like a truth bomb sound that could just go off when you say that, because it's such an interesting concept that there are things that, we know about, but we don't really know. But then there's things that exist that don't even cross our path at all.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes a certain path to go down in your lifetime to go, oh my God, I never knew that I never knew that. And that's what discovery is all about. That's where transformation comes in, is having those kinds of discoveries from being totally unaware that there are things that we don't know that we don't know. And so when we're talking about your potential is this imaginary thing that you can reach, this place you can get to, this place called nirvana, where you're at the top of your parenting game, where you're really effective with the decisions you make, how you're showing up to your kids, the space you create for them such that there's an extraordinary relationship being co-created amongst each other. But we don't realize that we could be sabotaging that momentum to get to that place. And so I want to discuss some of those things today, and then get your perspective on it as a young adult, as an ex-teen, and just kind of get some insight. So I want to go over them a little bit at a time. So the first thing that I wrote down was being a poor listener and hearing what you want to hear rather than what's being said. If you haven't really learned how to master your ability to listen well, there's things that are happening as your listening skills are poor. You hear things that you want to hear, but you're not really hearing what the person is talking about. And if your son or daughter is really trying to share something profound with you, you really got to ask yourself am I hearing what they're telling me? Because a lot of times we're not.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, the thing I'm imagining is incidents where I would talk about something in my life, and instantly the first reaction or the first response to it would be kind of like, I want to say judgment, but it's more like you telling me what to do or how to fix that
Yeah,
situation.
a lot of times I have a narrative as a parent that I got to try to fix your problems.
Right, and you listen in the beginning. You hear the first five words, but you don't listen to everything that follows, and everything that follows kind of puts everything into my perspective.
Right.
That I feel like is kind of being ignored a little bit by the parent, because they hear what they want and then take it with their perspective, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So let's say I'm having a conversation or living the narrative that you're not a responsible young lady yet because of the choices you've made. And as you're sharing the story with me, I'm listening from trying to validate one more time, you're not a responsible young lady yet and I can't trust you. Rather than putting that narrative aside or pausing it or shutting it down and listening to what you have to say, because what you have to say, there could be 3 or 4 messages as a dad that are really important for me to hear so that I can interact with you in that way and help you get to the next level or help you grow or help you realize something that's important. But I'm missing that. I'm missing the stories that you're telling me in your sharing, because I have this narrative that I'm trying to gather this evidence to prove that I'm right, that I can't trust you because you're not responsible. So we just have poor listening skills as parents, and we're not, if we're not working on them consciously and evolving in that area, we're sabotaging our best parenting.
Yeah, and in that sabotage, I think one of the prices that you pay is, your kid not coming back to you and not wanting to share more, because it really is such a gift to have a teenager especially share something with you, especially if it's something very, intimate or private, or, even having to do with their social life or anything. Those things are so important. It's everything to them. And you kind of ruining that trust or sabotaging your chances of creating a good relationship with your teen is kind of the listening seems to be like the thing that gets in the way. I mean, based off of this, and I haven't heard, all your tips yet, but the other thing I would say is judgment, which comes from the listening.
That's right. And then take in consideration that there are other people in your child's life or your children's lives that are vying for their attention, and they might be listening. And if you're not listening attentively to your kids, but three or four of their friends that are up to no good are listening or appear to be listening, then that's who they're going to be influenced by. So the power of influence really comes down to all these skills that you have to learn how to master as an effective parent.
Yeah, and that's something that we bring up all the time, and I really like to mention it just in case somebody's new or hasn't heard it before. But the concept that if you're not, being the most effective or being, doing the best that you can or being conscious, you have to realize that somebody else is, and somebody else is shaping and molding, your kids. And, it might be okay if it's, someone that also think you look up to or is inspirational, coaches, teachers, and but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's their friends or their friends' parents or whoever that is the one giving them attention and is the one that's listening and shaping them. So you kind of have to decide whether you're okay with someone else influencing your kids.
And if not, you got to turn up your game and you got to start practicing how to be more effective at hooking their attention. The next one is projecting your fears and doubts onto your children. There is this unconscious way about us as parents that we don't realize that we project ourselves onto our kids. We can project our fears and our doubts onto them through the way we speak, the words we choose. And if you're not really mindful and aware of the words that you're using, you could really be sending this hidden message underneath these words that you're trying to articulate yourself. Give me an example of either a parenting scenario or maybe even your own scenario of where I might have or your mom might have been projecting our fears and our doubts onto you and not realizing it. And what does it sound like?
Well, I mean, if you really want to know, I'm thinking of the most recent scenario, which is recently we were having a conversation about life and everything, and you had a conversation with me, and you said, "I don't." You started off with, "I don't mean to project my own." Fears or past or observations onto you, but
I probably did it anyways.
Yeah,
Right?
you did, and but setting it up that way kind of made it hit a little bit less. It didn't. It resonated with the with the little caution in front of it. So
Like letting you know it's not what I mean to do, but I might do it anyways.
Yeah, it's kind of like, hey, I just want to let you know what I'm thinking or what my fear is. Doesn't mean it's true, but I just want to tell you anyways because I feel like I love you and I have to, kind of thing. So
I think I know what it is.
yeah. So it was recently where you sat down or you brought to my attention that sometimes in relationships boys are not the most trustworthy and some of them cheat, some of them lie, some of them X, Y, and Z. And I think for whatever reason, you wanted to bring it to my attention, and I didn't ask for any more information. I just took it with, a grain. Just, okay, what does this mean? How can I, move forward? But one of the things that not only did you give me the caution, but at the end you said, how can you take responsibility? Because now you know that you've been warned almost. Not warned, but it's more like a you can't pretend you don't know it kind of thing.
Right.
And not that anything happened or could happen. You set it up in a way where even though it did feel a little bit projecting, it did feel like it came out of nowhere and it was your own fears and everything. There's still the unconscious part of me or the victim side of me that wanted to take it as, get upset or get angry or react. But instead, I think because it had the caution or I have the knowledge that's wasn't your intention, I was able to sit with it. And like I said, take it, with a grain. But I think that if you were to project that onto, your teenager, especially when they're so young and emotional, and you tell your teenage daughter, "Hey, you better be careful. That boy might cheat on you." That's a lot, and that's enough to send your kid into a reaction to say, "Oh, my parents don't understand. They don't get me. They don't know him like I do." And they kind of freak out a little bit, and I don't blame them. You didn't set up yourselves to win in that situation.
Yeah, there's a way to share some information and share your own fears and doubts with somebody without actually projecting it onto them. So the distinction about projecting it onto them is saying it as that it's so. So when a mom or dad says, "Hey, you better be careful because this guy doesn't look like he's on the up and ups. He could cheat on you." You're saying it as though that's actually going to happen and that that's who this guy is, rather than sharing from a place of being emotionally honest and going, "Hey, honey, my concern is, and these are my concerns, not yours." So that's why it's really important to be really mindful and aware of how you have conversations and the words you use and how you say them and how you kind of tee them up, because you're actually, when you tee it up in a certain way, you're letting someone know how you want them to listen to you, rather than just saying these blanket statements like this is what's going to happen. And so yeah, you got to really be careful on how you say that. And I wanted to let you know regarding the conversation I had with you when I was sharing my own fears and my own doubts. I hope that I landed to you that they were mine and I didn't want them to be yours, but I had, as a father, I'm trying to figure out how to educate my kids, either with some of the mistakes I've made or some of the wisdom that I've gained, so that if and when it does happen on your journey, I can't sit there and go, "Man, did I even have that conversation with her? Did I even prep her? Did I even open up the possibility that this could happen?" So that was one of those moments that I think, as a father, I wanted to make sure I had that conversation with you, such that you can be informed about certain decisions you're making. So you're not living your life making certain choices, going down a road very naive. And those are those, you're going to kind of tippy toe on a line with feeling like, your dad's or mom's fears are being projected onto you. And I hope that you didn't hear it like that.
Yeah, and I also think that there's a certain age where you I don't want to say you don't project onto your kids. I'm just thinking I can imagine me as a teenager hearing that and not hearing it the way that I did. So
You're talking
it
about the
takes
mature factor.
yes, and I'm saying it takes one, a certain level of maturity, and two, a certain level of consciousness. If your kid is not used to the concept of feedback or not projecting but sharing, if they're not used to those things, of course they're gonna see it like that. Of course they're gonna see you projecting your stuff onto them.
Yeah, no,
And
like in other words, no matter how much you tippy toe around it and give the information or share that insight so delicately, they're still going to walk out creating a belief that there goes my dad, he doesn't trust me, or he doesn't like my boyfriend, or whatever it is. They're going to start making those assumptions anyways.
and you know what? I also want to share, as far as going back to other people kind of raising your kids or influencing them. When you really think about it, there's a lot of people who are gonna do the projecting for you, almost like people are projecting enough that you don't need to be one of
That's
those
right.
people.
That's
and
right.
and just in my experience, for example, everything that you told me, everything that you tried not to project on me, I've already been projected on by my grandmother, by my girlfriends, by my sister, or whoever, like,
Right.
that are trying to tell you, like, oh, you better be careful because they love you. They just don't know how to say it, or they're not saying it in the soft, loving way.
In a
So
way that lands as you hear it more as somebody caring for you and opening up a possibility for you to look at, rather than telling you that, being pessimistic and negative and kind of projecting like this is going to happen. You better be prepared for it.
right.
The next one is not being present. So in case you're just joining us, we're talking about some of the things that we do, some of our lifestyle behaviors where we sabotage our best parenting. And number 3 is not being present, not being in the moment, being distracted or aloof, and not really listening to each word that your son or daughter is sharing with you. And in your distraction and in your unconsciousness and not being present, your kids are experiencing you like that, and they're making up stories. What kind of story can you make up as a kid if every time you come to me and you have something important to share with me and I'm distracted and I'm not present and I'm not giving you that 150% undivided attention?
Well, you make up that Facebook is more important to my mom
Mm-hmm.
than me. Work's more important to my dad than me. Cleaning, whatever it is that you're distracted by, is more important than me and the things that I have to say, especially like when you're a teenager and everything that you do is the most important thing to yourself because you really don't have any responsibilities. You only really need to look out for yourself, and you're very self involved at that age. So I think parents have this notion like, or this, preconceived like, oh, my teen thinks everything's about them, because it is. In their life, they don't have bills, they don't have kids, they don't have really responsibilities other than
That's a great
school.
point.
So I think it's almost a little bit, I don't want to be harsh like to the parents that are listening, but I think it's a little bit selfish for you to think that your kids are just naturally going to be taught to be considerate or to be conscious that other people have lives around you, because they're not really taught that unless they actually have some real solid responsibilities, like, taking care of their younger siblings or whatever. That those things I think come natural in that. But if you don't have that set up for your kid, everything is, really self-involved and about them. And if you can't even get your own parents' attention, it really hits hard.
It's a great realization to really see that if I were to, label the top 10 things that are really important to me in my life, the things I really need to focus on and stay on top of, and I put all 10 of them down, and then I have my teenager write down their 10 and I matched them up, I would go, wow, like, no wonder why I'm really short with her, because she's bringing her top number one to me, and doesn't even hit my top 10. So a lot of times as parents, we're judging our kids and we're deciding that the information that they're sharing with us that might be a number one on their priority list of importance, to us, it's down at the number 250th. So that's why we have to take in consideration to that. To them, that's number one. That's the top priority. And I think that's the challenge as parents, is that we don't stop everything and make what they say is important be important to
And
them.
I really like that visual comparison. It makes so much sense. And on that list of your top things, the top 10, I'm sure your kids fall in there probably
That's right.
number
That's
one.
right. That's right.
But when it branches off, let's say you have
All the
kids
little
number
all the
one,
little
it
branches.
branches off to kids' school, homework, soccer practice, friends,
Great
or
point.
whatever. You're not focusing on all those little
Yeah.
things. So it's almost like, are your kids really number one, or is feeding them, clothing them, and dropping them off at school number one?
Yeah, because kids are so multifaceted. They probably have, 2,000 different things inside of just the word kids on my list. There's 2,000 different little components, and one of them is what's important to them. So do we make that important as our number one as well, or is it just kind of, hiding under the radar? The next one is being unappreciative, not finding something to be grateful for. So imagine growing up and your mom is always showing up to you as being ungrateful in her life, period. Like always, whining and complaining and never experiencing or expressing the gratitude she has for some of the things that she can find, to be thankful for. So imagine growing up in a home where either one or both of your parents are just so ungrateful and so unappreciative. What is that? How does that sabotage your best parenting by just being unappreciative to your parents?
Okay, first I want to paint this picture that I think every single kid goes through, and it's when I was younger, my we had chores, right? And every time we would do our chores, my mom would always nitpick all the things that we didn't do good enough, in the chores. So it felt like, you're lucky I even did this, like you wanted to go into natural reaction. Now that I'm older, when I do tasks, my mom's like, wow, you're doing the dishes. Oh my gosh, thank you. So, and it's really funny because if she would have done that, probably like all the other times that I had to do the dishes, I would just naturally probably like normally do the dishes. But because there is so much ungratefulness attached to all of the things that you felt like you were doing, I can see how kids want to just would rather not do it at all, because there's not that you're supposed to get something out of it, but if the thing you're going to get out of it shouldn't be negative.
Yeah, I think that as parents is very easy or common to see things that our kids do, and instead of automatically training ourselves to find the positive in it and acknowledge it first, and then at a later moment choose a moment to give feedback of things that they can course correct. I think that's the healthy, natural way to build our kids up. But we don't do that. What we do is we automatically look and we discount all the things that they did right or good, and we start off with giving them the advice to make it better. And now that creates the assumption from the child that nothing I do is good enough, and you're unappreciative because you just missed the 4 or 5 things that I see that I did that I'm proud of, and you just blew right past it like it didn't even happen. And that's a great insight, is to kind of look at ourselves as parents and go, when my kids are doing things, am I first being a great observer? Am I observing those things? And then when I am observing them, am I acknowledging them first for what they're doing right, or what I like, or what's effective, or that's affirming their higher selves first, and then at a later moment giving them feedback? Or am I just automatically going to give them the feedback of what they can improve on, and things that they're not doing correctly?
Yeah, and I have one more thought about that. So after the break, I want to get back to that idea of, being ungrateful. But stay tuned so I can tell you that thought. We'll be right back.
Drugs or alcohol abuse can tear a family apart. In Santa Clarita, just like everywhere else, it's an epidemic. The Way Out Recovery is here to help. Call them now at 296-4444 or visit them on the web at thewayoutrecoveryscv.com. The Way Out offers outpatient treatment for adolescents, adults, and family members. The Way Out is compassionate, caring, professional, and confidential. You and your family don't have to suffer any longer. Call The Way Out Recovery now, 296-4444, or visit thewayoutrecoveryscv.com and make an appointment. Asking for help is the first step.
There are times when nothing else will do because you know exactly what you want. You want the Alamo, the taste of true Mexican cooking at its best. At Alamo, you're treated to a taste that is truly Mexican with an atmosphere to match. Enjoy a Cadillac margarita, try a mucho burrito, or sizzling fajitas. Voted the best Mexican food in the SCV and a favorite of former supervisor Mike Antonovich. Alamo Rotisserie in Granary Square, serving Santa Clarita for over 30 years.
Your hometown station, KHTS.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we're talking about how we sabotage our best parenting. And Dad, before we went on the break, we were talking about parents being ungrateful to their kids, or not really expressing gratitude. And one of the things I wanted to say before we went on the break was, if you really think about the way that you speak to your kids sometimes, it would translate so terrible if we spoke to you the same way, like especially in your ungratefulness. And an example would be if, you tell your kid, this could have been better, but you're saying it in a way. I'm going to take the cleaning example. Let's say your kid cleans the bathroom, and you tell him, you could have cleaned the shower better, you could have cleaned the toilet better, whatever. And you're telling him, look at all this that you missed. And,
or you walk in and go, and the trash cans? What about the trash cans? They don't get emptied too?
Or the worst is, you said you cleaned this already?
Yeah.
So
yeah, what'd you clean it with?
Yeah. So when you come in with all your judgments and your ungratefulness, if we were to I guess speak that way to you, or translate, the same expression,
what would that
body
sound like?
language.
I'm kind of interested now.
Well, I'm imagining it in the thing that you're probably most proud of. And in that moment, your kid's the most proud that they actually cleaned the bathroom. And one thing you might be proud of with your kids is maybe the way you're parenting or the way that you're raising them. And if I turned around and said, Mom, don't you think you could do better, with me? I could be better, and I'm not because of you. Or, they come up with... If they were to, I'm just trying to say, if they translate the things to you, or if you cook dinner, you're cooking dinner and you're like, Mom, this could have been better. Like, yeah, I know sometimes they're like, oh,
this isn't like grandma's meatloaf, right? Like,
and, I know kids say certain things like that. and they hurt. Like I
Yeah.
remember like being a kid and we would talk like, mess with you and be like, Dad, this needs more salt, or this is so terrible. And you would get so mad and say, you know what, fine, cook your own dinner. And then for like 3 weeks, everyone would have to make their own dinner because you were so, you're annoyed about it. So it does hurt our feelings the same way that you guys get, emotional or get hurt when we not only not express our gratitude, but do the opposite. We like really take a hit to the things that you're proud of or the things that you worked hard on. And I know kids do it, but I can guarantee they don't do it as much as parents do.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really interesting is that if I were to say that to you as a parent, as the kid to the parent, I would get in trouble. But you say it to us and it's if you want to say disrespectful, if I do it to you, it's almost like you could disrespect me as the kid and it not come off the same way. But I can also, imagine a lot of parents thinking, oh, well, I'm the parent. Of course I can say that. Well, you could say anything, but that doesn't make you, that sabotages, your best parenting.
That's right. And I want to also end a note on that is you might you might be grateful as a parent and appreciative, and we're not saying you're not, but I want to open up the possibility that you might not be showing up like that to your kids, and that's a whole nother distinction. If I'm very grateful and very appreciative of all things that my kids do, but my kids aren't experiencing that, then I got to really look at what's missing then. Something's missing because I really do feel grateful and appreciative of all the things they're doing. Then I got to try to figure out how I'm showing up in a different way that my kids are having a different kind of experience, that they're actually having the opposite experience of me. So that's why we're having this discussion, just for you to take a look at what is missing. Is it maybe you have to just tweak a few things about what to say, or maybe you shuffle the order of the feedback you give. Maybe you start off with acknowledging all the things that they're doing right, and then at a later moment, then you give them the feedback of stuff that they can course correct. Because if you're doing it the opposite, that's maybe how you're showing up to them as you're ungrateful and unappreciative.
Yeah, it's interesting because you could say exactly the same things just in different order and
Yeah.
have a different effect.
And you have a different experience from your kids. The next one is being positioned and having a fixed mindset. I think that there's nothing more frustrating for a teenager. And, a child really doesn't, they kind of just roll along with it because you're the controller, you're the leader, and they just kind of don't really know how to interact with that. But, when you're a preteen and you're a teenager and you're opening up some ideas with your parents, or you're sharing these ideas, or you're excited about something, and you experience your mom or dad being really positioned and having a fixed mindset and being unmovable. You're just unwilling to bend or unwilling to see it their way, not even once. So 9 times out of 10, 10 of those times I'm not able to see what you're sharing with me. That can be frustrating for a child.
Yeah, and kind of going back to when you were saying preteens, I think when you're in your like preteen, 13, 12-year-old age, that's kind of when you find your place in your family. Like exactly what your role is. And I've noticed this.
And you also find your voice too.
Exactly. And it all starts within your family. So you kind of find your role within your family and then you grow from there, on the outside, like to the outside world. But if you're the quiet, shy, timid one in your family, you're probably the quiet, shy, timid one within your friends and then within your coworkers, and you get older and older. But it's very interesting because it's kind of like the way that your kids act around you. Sometimes I remember when I was younger, like my mom would say like, oh, you're so different from like with your family, with your friends. With your friends, you're all fun, loving, and excited. And then here you're grouchy, moody, teenage girl. But it's because I found my place at home, because people, they put you in a box. So the same way that you're kind of saying, like, if you're a parent and you're very controlling, it's like you already in that box to me as the kid. You're my controlling dad. I'm not going to ask you for anything. I'm going to go to the nice parent that'll, tell me what I want to hear, let me do what I want. So it's kind of like the kid learns how to maneuver around you being in that box. The same, it's interesting because I could be, the moody, teenager, and it's almost like you won't maneuver around me because you're trying to shape me into this thing. But me as the kid, I'm not trying to shape you into anything. You are what you are. I've put you in a box, which is, that's terrible and it's limiting and all those things. But what I'm really trying to say is that your kids, they find their place, and then no matter how much they try to get out, you kind of, stuff them and like leave them. It's like you don't want them to leave that box. And that's like one of the things I want to point out is that when you try to, let's say you begin your conscious journey of parenting, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't know how to be anything other than I am, or is my kid going to think this is weird if I go from the controlling parent to the coachable parent? How do I find that gap? And it's almost like it's like if you start with yourself, your kids will kind of also maneuver around it. Like, it's interesting that kids like follow your lead, or they try to be, they try to please you all the time, or they try to be like you almost, even if they hate you. There's still things about you that they admire and that they like. And I guess really what I'm trying to say is, being that controlling parent, it's not too late to try to open up new possibilities and do all the things that you've always wanted to do, laugh with your kid and have fun, and go on vacations and do all those things. But one of the things that I would say to start with is, taking your own kid out of that box, or not trying to shape them into what they want to be, because they're more willing to give you a chance to change than you are with them.
Yeah. And it's definitely, when it comes to being positioned and fixated on a certain mindset, and you got that fixed mindset, you're actually, by modeling that, you're teaching your kids how to be that as well. And then you're wondering why your guys are butting heads. Well, it's because your kids learned how to be positioned and have a fixed mindset themselves. And then every time you want them to listen to you, now you guys are just at it all the time.
Yeah, but more importantly, when they're a teenager and you have that fixed mindset, they're not there yet, because, they haven't gotten to the butting heads. So they want to be their own person and do their own thing, but your fixed mindset's kind of like brushing off onto them.
Right.
And that's why when, you get older and you have a teenage girl, especially, and, she has a lot of attitude, it really comes from all of the attitude that you gave her in the first place. There's this really funny, joke that goes around on Facebook, and it says, my mom's always yelling at me, why I have so much attitude? And I'm like, I got it from you, So I think it's really funny, especially for teenage girls, to see that, they are just like their moms, and
That's where the term mini-me comes from.
yeah, and especially, at least in my personal relationship, me and my mom, we love each other, but we fight because we're exactly the same. And a lot of it comes from that fixed mindset of, I'm right and you're always, if I say, black, you say white, and we have this made up, I guess, box, that we put our whole relationship in, that sometimes you just kind of want to give up on. But you realize, when you need that person, you realize, you don't want to give up on that.
Yeah. Today, if you're just joining us, we're talking about some of the things that we do in our personal choices and our personality lifestyles, of how we sabotage our best parenting. And the next one is when you're reactive, when you're quick to judge and you jump to conclusions without facts. That can sabotage your best parenting. How is being reactive, quick to judge, and jumping to conclusions without facts, how would that sabotage your best parenting when it comes from the child's perspective? How do you guys get frustrated when we're reactive, quick to judge? Does it turn you off? Does it upset you? Does it make you not want to keep opening up to us?
I mean, it kind of goes back to what I said a little bit earlier in the show when we were talking about parents listening or not listening. I was saying it's such a gift for your kid or your teen to share with you and actually let you into their life, that I feel like parents, they act like it's a privilege or a right, that they should know all these things about them, or my son should talk to me. But really, it's not. It really is a great gift that not a lot of kids do. So I think when you take advantage of that, when you take advantage of our trust, and by take advantage, I mean all those things: judge, jump to conclusions, tell us what we should and shouldn't do, all of those things are the things that are getting in your way of having like a good quality relationship where you can sit down and just, talk and give them advice and everything. But I also kind of can see I want parents to kind of see from the kid's point of view, if we did the same thing to you. Parents don't really share that much about their day or what happened at work to their kids. But if myself as the kid said, "Oh, Dad, how was work today?" and you start talking to me and I'm like, "Oh, well, don't you think maybe you should do this? Or, you're like, why are you telling me what to do? And it's almost like, I think if you think about the things that you do to your kids and you switch it like as if they did it to you, it would be so absurd. And it's almost like, then why do you do it?
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, when you're reactive, quick to judge, and you jump to conclusions without facts, more importantly, your kids stop trusting you. They just decide that they don't want to keep sharing with you because of the way that you respond. It's a turnoff to them. So if you're wondering why your kids don't open up to you and share with you information, there might be some of the reactiveness and a quick to judge and jump to conclusions, and that's just going to get in the way of that relationship and that trust that they need from you to be able to have that relationship at the next level.
But don't you think it's like that with everyone? You don't want a friend that's gonna jump to conclusions, tell you what to do when they don't have all the facts. Like, you don't want any real relationship to be like that yet to the person that you're training and teaching, to be out there in the world, you're doing the same thing to.
Absolutely. The reason why I brought it up, and it could be affecting you in all areas of your life, but the reason why I brought it up is because it could be happening and you could be unaware of it, or really just unconscious or ignoring that's how you're showing up. And a lot of times we have these dysfunctions as parents, we just keep ignoring them unless they're pointed out, or unless somebody paints a picture that I can listen to it and go, oh my God, that's me. Or we watch a movie where there's this angry parent and we go, ooh, and we cringe a little bit going, I've been that sometimes. So it's having those moments by listening to somebody share that insight that you can identify that you've been that before.
Yeah, and it kind of just an overall, I guess, disclaimer of this show is none of the things that we are saying are like we live by them and they're 100% true, because as we're talking about it, I'm thinking of all the times I've done that. And, most of the time I'm willing to tell them myself, but there's other times where I'm so almost heartbroken or so upset with myself that I could even, be saying it and telling people and not do it myself.
Absolutely. That's what the juice is when it comes to being conscious. Being conscious isn't about being perfect. It's about being emotionally honest and being willing to look at the things that you still need to work on. It's just being courageous enough to say, look, I am not perfect and I still need to keep working on this, and I'm going to keep working on it until I keep fine-tuning it and being more effective at it. So the next thing that I have on the list is getting disappointed very easily, not having enough compassion for the learning curve. So if you're a parent and you're disappointed very easily in your kids and you don't have enough compassion that they have a learning curve and it takes them a little while to learn some things, you're going to sabotage your best parenting, because your kids are going to look at you and go, man, do I have to be perfect? When you teach me something, is it a 1, 2, 3, boom, I got it? Or do I have room to make a few mistakes and fall down and pick myself up? And does it take 12 different steps or 30 different steps for me to finally learn this one lesson? And I think that parents, for the most part, they get very disappointed easily, because to them, when they give instructions to their kids, from their mindset, they're like, this is an easy one. Like, why haven't you learned this lesson yet? Instead of being compassionate for that our kids aren't us. They might not be as sharp as us. And sometimes I think we live in the illusion that when our parents were teaching us things, that we just got stuff and we picked it up and we just understood it right away. And I guarantee you it was nothing like that. But we live in this illusion as parents that our kids are supposed to learn just by us telling them one time or teaching them one time. And that's not the way it works. It's not that linear. When you're teaching, especially when you're teaching kids, it takes multiple times and it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a big it takes the capacity to be able to walk along with them, whether it's 3 times, 5 times, 12 times, 200 times, till finally they flip that switch and they go, oh my God, I got it. Thank you, Dad, for being so patient with me and teaching me this. I know it took you 5 years to finally get me to see it, but now I see it.
Yeah, and as you're explaining that, I can see how it kind of reminded me of like a coach, like either, football coach, soccer coach, whatever. They, as an experienced one, they've gone 15 years seeing how long it takes one kid to throw the perfect spiral, let's say. After a while, you realize it's not instant, so they push you, yes, but they understand and they have patience. And I think, yeah, on your 50th kid, you would have patience and understand, the training process and teaching. But I think that's why coaches are so inspirational, and that's why kids really, look up to them. And it's because they have that patience, because they understand that process.
That's right.
And of course.
And I think it's frustrating. If we had a coach to call in, it'd be awesome to get a sports coach, because I guarantee you every sports coach would tell you probably off the top of their head 5 to 10 different parents that they've had in the past that have really frustrated them to see the kid that they're so excited for throughout the whole season, little Johnny or Samantha, finally did that one thing that they've been practicing all season, and they're really excited for the kid, and they look up, and then the mom and dad's disgusted because it's taken them the whole season to finally learn that one lesson. And so I think you're right. Like, coaches, they understand that process takes a while, and they'll tell themselves, hey, this is a young team, this is a new team. Don't expect us to start winning championships this year. It might take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years for us to get that good. But parents want it now. They want to be able to know that they taught you something and that you learned it now. And I think that's just par for the course. We get frustrated that you're not learning it at the faster rate of speed that we want you to learn it in.
Yeah, and I want to share one of my aha moments when I really realized that. And I've shared it probably 100 times before, but if you're new, this is the best story. So when I was, I used to tutor and help out a family friend's kids. She had triplets, and they were in kindergarten, so they were doing addition and subtraction, and I'm teaching them how to do very easy addition. 2 + 2 = 4, and they weren't understanding and they weren't getting it. And I felt myself get so frustrated and so overwhelmed with, God, don't you know? Like, 2 + 2 is 4. It just is. And it was really a moment for me when I went home and I, relaxed, and I thought, oh my gosh, like, of course he doesn't know what 2 + 2 is. That's such a complex, idea for a child who's never heard of it, who doesn't understand that process. And ever since then, I really go back to that moment, like, where I kind of had the, like, oh my gosh, like, I feel so bad.
And that's why not everyone can teach. Not everyone has the patience to be a teacher. Now, here's the sock to the stomach. If not everyone has the patience to teach, then not everyone has the patience to really be an effective parent. And that's a very challenging pill to swallow, because your job as a parent is to teach. That's your job, is to figure out how to master those interpersonal tools like the patience, to be able to walk them through that process very lovingly, very compassionate, very patiently, and then give them the kudos and the high fives and acknowledge the things that they are doing, not projecting your fear and frustration onto them because they're not doing it the way that it makes sense to you.
Yeah, and for me, it was really, I feel like I got lucky. That's like my favorite story, my favorite aha moment for me, because I can really go back to it. I feel like until you have that maybe it's just a thought, it's just an idea. But when you really experience it, it's like a feeling that it
sticks with you.
Yeah,
it probably even haunts you.
It does.
And when you have your own kids, you're gonna remember. It's gonna be lingering, going, "Hey, don't be that impatient little 19-year-old girl that was frustrated with little Tommy because he couldn't get 2 + 2."
Yeah, and I know I have so much love for this.
You poured your frustration onto him. You projected all that.
I really did, and like I said, I
hope you hugged him and apologized.
I did. I love him so much. I'm so grateful, really, for that experience. And we have to take a quick break, but stay tuned for more of the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS.
Santa Clarita, bedbugs are taking over our city. They've invaded our homes, our businesses, and most importantly, our sleep. If you have suspicious bites that appear nightly, or have a bug that you need ID'd, your best option is to make one call to All Pro. We offer a 100% guarantee that your bedbug issues will be solved with heat in one treatment. No need to tent or spray your house with chemicals. Heat is all you need. Call 661-298-2200 or text me a bug picture to 661-645-0540. It's time to sleep tight again, SCV.
Don and Gino here. So we know you want to have fun learning about real estate and finance. You're going to want to tune in this Saturday, 9 a.m. to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show right here on your hometown station. Hot topics, as always, guiding you to personal financial wellness. And that's right, you don't want to miss it. So again, this Saturday, 9 a.m., and then we replay it online Sunday, 9 a.m., Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. right here on the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show. Join us.
Genghis Khan Mongolian Barbecue and Chinese Buffet, healthy vegetables and lean meats, a low-carb treat. Create your own bowls with our delicious meats and always fresh vegetables. Then, blend in your own secret sauce. Feast at the all-you-can-eat buffet and barbecue for the same low price. A local favorite for over 25 years, Genghis Khan is still located on Lyons Avenue just east of the I-5. Enter between the Chevron and Shell gas stations. Come and see us soon at Genghis Khan.
Your hometown station.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we are talking about how we sabotage our best parenting. We only have a couple minutes, so what I'm going to do, Dad, is I'm going to let you just talk. I just want you to just say as many as you can.
You know what? I'm not going to do that this time because this list is so powerful. And I didn't realize that this is really, the list should be a two show for two shows. So I'm not going to try to just power through it. Maybe we'll do the back end for a show too. But I'll definitely go over a couple more, and then we'll wrap up with some of the awesome stuff I got this weekend, and then we'll wrap the show up. But what I wanted to talk about on the list was one of the ways that we can be sabotaging our best parenting is that we can be resigned. We can give up on our child's potential. We can realize quickly, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, that I don't have the capacity to stay the course long enough to keep believing in my kid. And whether it's sad or not sad is just what happens. As parents, we got so much on our plate, from trying to figure out how to pay the bills to, how to manage 2 or 3 companies, or worrying about whether I'm still going to have my job next year. And so there's so much on our plate that I think that's just subconsciously our commitment to parenting just slowly dies out. And the more that our kids can feed themselves and, wash themselves and go to school and navigate themselves to a certain degree, we start focusing on all those other things, and then it becomes less of a priority to be committed to our parenting.
I don't think anybody would ever admit that they kind of gave up on their kids, and maybe that's not like what we should call it, but I do think that by not consciously and rigorously committing to your kids, by default, what you're doing is kind of giving up on that commitment. And one thing I want to...
And it's delicate. I mean, just you saying it, I'm going, oh my God, I'm cringing, because, the average parent doesn't want to say, I'm giving up on my kids. So what we're saying is, okay, could you be giving up on your parenting?
Or the commitment to being the best parent.
Or your commitment to being the best parent. That's why today when we started the show and you guys looked at me and you go, what do you mean, sabotaging your best parenting? It's like a theory. It is a theory, but it doesn't mean that people aren't committed to be the best parent, and they're not consciously working at it and committed to it every single day, all day long. Because people are. It might be a small percentage, but there are people that are living their life like that. And you're not bad and wrong because you're not. I'm just pointing out that could there be a possibility that you could decide for yourself that it is important to you, and it always has been, and maybe I want to now start re-engaging back into that commitment again.
Yeah, or maybe you feel like you are being the best parent, but at least for me, I'm the kind of person that I feel like I'm never really at the best. Like I like to think I am, or if I'm putting it on a scale, if I think I'm doing really good, I'll rate myself a 7, because I know that there's a gap between 7 and 10 that's missing, or that could be better. So what I think is really cool is coming from that perspective. You're always thinking, okay, how can I fill in that gap? Like what's in that gap that is keeping me from being a 10? And as long as you always live in that 7 or 8 gap, or even 9, whatever gap whatever the gap looks like to you, as long as you're always living there, there's always room for you to be excited about being better.
Absolutely. And whatever you do not put yourself at a 10, because once you're at a 10, then we decide that we're there and we stop growing, and you miss out on the next level of what a 10 can be. Let's get on the next one. And I'm going to actually take two of them and put them together. So the next one is harping on mistakes, unwilling to forgive and move on, pointing out things to correct, or giving advice without creating permission. So a lot of times we harp on mistakes and we're unwilling to forgive and move on, like holding grudges. Holding grudges and harping on mistakes and always focusing on that is going to absolutely sabotage your best parenting, because your kids are going to look at you and go, oh my God, like how long are we going to keep hanging on to this?
Or putting them in that box. And as someone who like religiously lives in that box, I really pointed out that your kid does not want to be in a box. You don't want to be in a box, and being in that box is really the thing that suffocates us when you're harping on all of our past, or all of the things that's wrong with us or what could be better. All of those things. It's like, for me, I just want to throw it away. I want the box not to exist, and I want to be all the things, even the good things that you guys are that you guys love about me.
What I love most is your incredible insight.
Is this a high five?
It is. And thank you for sharing your insight with us today on these tips on really being honest and looking at ourselves and being willing to identify some of the things that we're doing that's getting in the way of our best parenting. Now, this weekend, I have my very first Inspirational Parent workshop that I'm really excited to be launching, because it's everything that I've put into the book, and I've cherry picked all the great stuff that I get to interact with you one-on-one. Imagine sitting in a training room with the author of a book that brings 20 plus years of insight working with teenagers and the ins and outs of, effective parenting, and really kind of interacting and talking and sharing and going through these powerful exercises. What a profound value you can create for yourself in a training room like this. And it's happening this Saturday and this Sunday here in Santa Clarita Valley. If you want more information, go to my website at alexurbina.com. And if you're feeling courageous enough to jump in and willing to take your next level of parenting to a whole nother level called extraordinary, sign up, and we'll see you tomorrow.
And I'm going to be there just for a little teeny little bit.
I'm excited for that.
So, like you said, if you have any inkling, like maybe you actually really like this show, this will be a bigger, blown up version of that. So, it'd be really exciting to just, take listening to some action.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us today on The Inspirational Parent. We're here every Friday from 12 to 1 right here on your hometown station, KHTS.